fix it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I fix it, dear Liza? With what?
With some straw, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. With some straw, dear Henry, dear Henry. Some straw.
Fire fellow! But the straw is too long, dear Liza, dear Liza. The straw is too long, dear Liza, too long.
Then cut it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. Then cut it, dear Henry, dear Henry. Then cut it.
With what shall I cut it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I cut it, dear Liza? With what?
With an axe, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. With an axe, dear Henry, dear Henry. An axe?
The real axe!
But the axe is too dull, dear Liza, dear Liza. The axe is too dull, dear Liza, too dull.
Then sharpen it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. Then sharpen it, dear Henry, dear Henry. Then sharpen it.
With what shall I sharpen it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I sharpen it, dear Liza? With what?
With a stone, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. With a stone, dear Henry, dear Henry. A stone?
That's a real stone and that's a real axe.
But the stone is too dry, dear Liza, dear Liza. The stone is too dry, dear Liza, too dry.
Then wet it, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. Then wet it, dear Henry, dear Henry. Then wet it.
With what shall I wet it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I wet it, dear Liza? With what?
With some water, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. With some water, dear Henry, dear Henry. Some water?
With what shall I fetch it, dear Liza, dear Liza? With what shall I fetch it, dear Liza? With what?
With a bucket, dear Henry, dear Henry, dear Henry. With a bucket.